Hey guys, so today I'm doing my book club wrap up for Serpent and Dove. This was the first book for my book club, the Kara Amley book club. I don't know, what should we call this book club? I haven't really thought about that actually. But we read Serpent and Dove. I was really excited to read this book. I was really into the fact that it was like a really strong hate to love romance, and it was more new adult than it was like young adult, which really caught my attention as well. And I heard some really great things about this book, but I also heard like not so great things about this book, so I was really interested to go into it and kind of see what I think about it and kind of see what you guys think about it. So in the comments down below, I want you guys to just open up discussion. I want you to respond back to each other and have like really good conversations about the books that we read. I want this to be kind of forum-like so we can have some like really good book club discussions. So you can comment down below like 15 times if you want. I don't care, but get to know each other and all of that kind of stuff. I think it'll be really fun. And in this video, I'm going to tell you guys kind of like what I thought about it. So what do you guys think? Did I love this book? Did I hate this book? What were my thoughts on this book? I actually gave this book 4 stars. Now, I think I could have easily given this book 5 stars, but I just didn't feel like it was quite 5 stars for a few like writing reasons. I felt like you could tell that this book was a debut novel, and I feel like if the author had a little bit more experience in writing, some of the issues that I had with this wouldn't be so noticeable. So that's why I decided to go with a 4-star rating with this book. But there was a few things that I absolutely loved, so I'll talk about those first, and then I'll talk about kind of the things that I didn't like as much next. So the things that I loved. First off, the characters. So I don't know if you guys are the same with this, but I didn't actually like Reed or Lou at the beginning of this book. I thought Lou was kind of like disrespectful, kind of selfish, kind of bratty. Like I didn't like her really snarky, kind of bad attitude, to be honest. Like she just rubbed me the wrong way. She just seemed very disrespectful. And then Reed, obviously, is like the extreme opposite side of the spectrum. He's an extremist, very dogmatic. He was indoctrinated from a very young age, so he has like these really strong beliefs. And I don't like extremists in general, people that are so extreme with things that there's like no gray area. And so Reed was like extremely rigid, and I didn't love either character at first. But that is what made their character arcs so good in this novel and why I liked their character arcs so much. So with Lou, I actually found it really interesting because throughout the story you see a little bit more weakness show up in Lou's character, and you learn a lot about her past, and I loved that kind of later in the novel she showed some weakness, some aspects of herself that are a little bit scared, obviously from her past, because her freaking coven is trying to kill her, and so are the witch hunters. So really, she is a character that I feel like was masking a lot of her insecurities with these kind of poor character traits, like the snarky, kind of mean, bullyish, disrespectful kind of attitude that was like all a mask to like some deeper turmoil that she was going through. And kind of as you learn that about her character throughout the story, I thought it created like a really interesting layered aspect to her character, and I felt like she was really multifaceted, and it was really fun to learn about her character through the story, because I feel like some people thought that she changed because she met a guy and so her personality changed, but I don't think that was the case. I think that she was able to open up her vulnerabilities, and you actually learned what was buried deep inside of her and how her original characteristics were just kind of like masking that, and that's what she was using to cope with all the trouble that she was going through. And I thought that was really well done. And then it was the same with Reed. He was so dogmatic and so just rigid in his way of thinking. And he was raised from a very young age to kill witches and to believe that his sole purpose in life was to kill witches. And he was just an extremist, basically. And the thing I loved about Reed's character is that you really saw his like dogmatic religious beliefs come head to head with like empathy and morality, and you saw those two things fight with each other throughout the story, and you kind of saw his like more honorable characteristics kind of bubble up to the surface a little bit. And I loved seeing like that inner struggle and the inner turmoil within him, and how his character slowly grew and opened his mind slightly throughout the entire story. And so I really liked both characters for that reason. They were both so interesting, and they were both extremely layered characters. So I think she did so great there. And I also loved the side characters. Now I saw it in some videos, some people were like, I didn't think the side characters were very well like fleshed out. But I didn't feel that way, which is so interesting. Like, two people can read the same book and have completely different opinions on certain aspects. I actually loved the side characters. I thought they were super well done. I absolutely loved Coco. I thought that she was explained really well, and I really understood her and like wanted to know more about her. I liked her blood magic and how loyal she was. Like, there was so much about Coco that I loved, and there was so much about Ansel that I loved. Ansel was one of my favorite characters in this entire book. Like, he was so sweet and wonderful. Like, he had that innocence that this book needed to kind of help the story, help the reader see the story through like a gray lens, if that makes sense. Like, this character Ansel was very, very needed for this novel, and I loved him so much for that reason. He was just such a little sweetheart, and if anything happens to Ansel in future books, I'll be so sad, because he was just the best character. And he really helped Reed grow, and he also really helped kind of Lou grow at the same time. He was just such a good like binding character, and I loved him. And I also loved how she paced the story. The story was so well paced. So much was happening. I felt like she knew how to keep a reader invested in the story. You know, like if one thing started to like dwindle, she knew how to like pick it back up, you know, have something else happen. So through the entire story, I felt very like intrigued, and I was never bored while reading this, which I really liked. And I also loved the magic. I wish you would have gone a little bit more into detail with the magic, but I loved most of the magic system. I loved the blood magic. I thought that was really interesting, but I wish I would have learned more about the blood magic, because I almost felt like at times blood magic was like overpowering. Like, I felt like Coco could do like so much with her magic, and I was kind of like, where's the limitations here? That was one downside to that, but I loved the Dame Blanche's magic and how they had to balance a spell with something else. That was so interesting. So basically, if they wanted to make a spell, they had to sacrifice, because nature likes balance. So if she wanted to do like a really, really, really big spell, she would have to balance it with like a really big sacrifice. And so it really put a limit on her magic, which I thought was so interesting. And I loved how you pictured the magic in your head, like the different gold threads, you know, going from the sacrifice to the spell, so you could see how things were balanced. It was just so well done. I love that aspect of the Dame Blanche's magic. But there was one thing that I could not get over at the very end of this book, and it was driving me crazy. I loved that they had to sacrifice for their magic, but I felt like Lou was constantly sacrificing, and she had these huge, huge sacrifices that she was having to do to, you know, do her magic. But at the end, she was fighting these Dame Blanches, and Reed was fighting these Dame Blanches, and they were all just throwing around these spells left and right, and I'm like, don't they have to sacrifice anything? Like, what are they sacrificing? It doesn't really seem that they're really worrying about their sacrifices, and they were like these big spells, and I'm like, and it just didn't seem quite right to me. I almost felt like the author forgot that aspect to a certain degree. So another thing I thought was interesting about this novel was how there wasn't like a clear villain in this novel. Like, usually there's like a villain and you like hate the villain and the good guys are trying to like beat the villain, but with this, like, I didn't completely hate the witches and I didn't completely hate the huntsmen, but I saw a lot of problems with the huntsmen and I saw a lot of problems with the witches. I didn't hate either party more and I didn't like any other party more. They both had their evil ways and they both had their good aspects as well. And I thought that was really interesting because it made for a more complex story, and it made you kind of question like who you're for and who you're against, but there wasn't really a clear line, and I really liked that aspect. I thought it was really well done. So there's a few things that bothered me in this book. One being, you know, the spells and how the other witches were just kind of like doling out those spells like it was like nobody's business. But also the ring. The ring is something that was really bothering me throughout the whole story. I was like, okay, Lou has this ring that makes her invisible, which is great, which is fine, but there's a reason why I don't like invisibility in books. It drives me nuts, and it's because I feel like invisibility is a cop-out magic power that is too powerful, and it causes authors to not write it correctly and not write it realistically. And this has happened in multiple books that I've read where a character will have invisibility, but it's like the author doesn't want to use it because she knows that if she uses it, they can literally get out of any situation. And I feel like this was the exact same thing that happened in this book. This character, Lou, had this ring that made her invisible and she never used it. ever. She used it a couple of times to get out of a couple things, but there were so many situations in this novel that she could have popped the ring in her mouth and she would have gone invisible. It just would have made the situation easier. And it just frustrated me through the whole thing because I felt like the ring was a big plot line, but it wasn't used in a realistic way. Because if it was real life and this was real, like, you'd be using that ring left and right. Why didn't she? Was there a reason? It didn't really clarify. I don't know. I was just kind of confused about the ring thing. I hate to say this because you guys know that I'm a huge romance person. Like, I love myself romance, but I had some issues here. And I am pretty, like, forgiving of romances. The pacing of this romance just didn't make sense to me. So this started out as like extreme hate to love, right? And it was fine. Like, they hated each other, like hated each other. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, and they kind of like dipped their toes in a little bit. And then it was like, boom. Like, they were like the highest level of love. They were like Reese and Feyre level of love, like out of nowhere. Like, it was supposed to be slow burn, and it could have been slow burn if the author would have done it right, but she didn't pace it very well. Like, she could have made that like questioning area of the love maybe a little bit longer. Like, it felt really odd. I was like, I don't feel like you guys should love each other as much as you love each other. And that to me kind of shows poor writing when you're actually questioning whether the characters love each other as much as they love each other. Like, you're like, but do you though? I liked the romance and I love romance, and I was able to kind of like suspend my disbelief, but it was kind of jarring at times, I'm not gonna lie. I liked it for the most part. Like, I enjoyed most aspects of this novel, but there was just very glaring problems with the writing that I couldn't really ignore. And a lot of people have brought up like fat shaming problems and like a few other things, which of course is never a good thing. But as far as like reading the novel goes and my enjoyment of it, I actually enjoyed it pretty well, but some of the issues that I had were just a little bit too glaring for my taste, which is why I gave it 4 stars. I could even maybe give it like 3.75, but I'll round it up to 4. I'm excited to read the next books though. I think the next books are going to be really good. At least I hope so. Maybe she'll clear up some of the issues that happened in this book. And the cover is gorgeous. Can we just talk about the cover? Like, that is a beautiful, beautiful cover. I'm trying to think, is there anything else I want to talk about? I think this book also covered a lot of really interesting topics. I think that she was able to relate kind of some of the topics in this novel to some current things that we're going through in society. You know, acceptance and kind of opening up your mind to different people and understanding that everyone is human and being much more accepting of different groups of people. And I think that this book kind of tackled those topics, but in like a different way, which I thought was really good because she definitely had Reed grow a lot in the story, and I think he's going to continue to grow in future books, which is going to be really interesting. So I really like that. I thought that she did a pretty good job with that. Your perception can be really skewed if you are raised in a certain environment or you're told things your whole entire life to believe a certain way, but once you're actually able to kind of open up your mind and interact with different groups of people and get to know different groups of people and learn about different groups of people, that your world may be a little bit more closed than you are aware of. And I think that that is a really cool thing that this book tackled. And I think that it's going to kind of expand even more in future books. So I think that's really good as well. So yeah, that is my overall review. I hope you guys liked it. Like I said, comment down below all of your guys' thoughts on this book. I just want to know all of your guys' opinions. Some of you guys have already shared some of your opinions with me on my Insta stories. So yeah, just comment down below and I will try to reply back to as many comments as I can, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye!